My name is Jennifer Evans, and I am an Extension Associate at North Carolina State University Extension Forestry. I know this is a busy time of year for everybody, so I just want to say thank you for joining, and we really appreciate you listening in today. Today we're very excited to have our guest speakers Robert Horton and Tom Ward with the Nrcs talk about prescribed fire opportunities that are available for forestry and wildlife consultants. This webinar is sponsored in part by the Nrcs, North Carolina State University Extension Forestry, and the Southeast Regional Partnership for Planning and Sustainability. If you've attended our webinars in the past, you might already be familiar with how the webinars work, but for some of you, those of you who are new, I'm going to go over just a few housekeeping items before we start. So after the webinar, you'll see a satisfaction survey pop up, and we ask that everyone on the webinar complete this survey so that we can continue to improve our webinars in the future. And then for those of you who are on the line who would like to receive continuing education credit for participating in this webinar, or the webinar is actually going to be archived, and so if you go back and watch the webinar later, you have to complete all 6 of the steps shown here. So right now we're on step 3, which is participating in the webinar. And then at the end of the webinar, you'll be given an opportunity to complete the survey, take a quiz, and then complete the form. And then once all of these steps have been completed, you'll be emailed a certificate. To use Collaborate, in the top right corner of your audio and video box, you'll see the audio setup wizard. So if you have problems with volume or anything like that, you will be able to change those settings there. There's going to be a couple questions throughout the webinar where we'll be asking you to answer questions. So you'll see a polling box right now. I'm going to go ahead and you can see right now there's a little checkbox there. Later it's going to look like letter A in a square box. So you just pull down that function and choose your answer. And last, I wanted to point out the chat box. So down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see a chat box where we can actually see all of your messages. So just note that, even if it says private. But this is where we're also going to use chat box for questions and any technical difficulties. So if you're having problems hearing or any sort of issues, go ahead and type them into the chat box. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, go ahead and type them there also. I'm going to be taking notes of everybody's questions, and then we'll save them to the end of the webinar for Robert and Tom to give them an opportunity to answer them at the end. So throughout the presentation, just go ahead and feel free to type them in. If you want to right now, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. So I'm going to write Jennifer Evans, North Carolina State University. If you want to introduce yourself, go ahead and feel free to do that now in the chat box. Okay. So let's go ahead and try out the polling box that I mentioned, just so that we have an idea of where everybody's participating from. So right now you'll see a polling box. It should have the letter A there, let's see, A through E multiple choice. And for some reason that's not showing up on mine. Okay, you should have a polling box. For some reason it's not showing up on mine, but hopefully it's showing up on yours. Go ahead and scroll down to the letter that matches your location. So for example, if you're listening to the eastern region, choose D. I'll give everybody a second to, okay, I'm getting some feedback that that's actually not showing up as an option. Okay, I'll have to play around with this in a second, so sorry about that. If you'd like to, you can just go ahead and type it into the chat box. So let's go ahead and begin our webinar. Today's webinar was actually developed due to a meeting that we had with the Natural Resources Conservation Service staff in North Carolina. And they noted that there's a need for more prescribed burning in North Carolina and also in other southeastern states. That can currently be accomplished. So there's a need for more fire on the ground, and one of the ways to help meet this need for more burning is for there to be more certified burners and for there to be more consultants participating in burning. So today's webinar is really going to be focused on ways in which forestry and wildlife consultants can take part in some of these prescribed fire opportunities. So I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. Again, I'm Jennifer Evans, an Extension Associate at North Carolina State University.
Mine ended up being able to download.
I'm getting some feedback on the line, so if you don't mind making sure that your talk button is turned off. Okay. Thank you. Robert Horton is a resource conservationist with the Nrcs and is responsible for forestry activities in North Carolina along with other duties. He has 37 years of experience, 20 in the field and 17 in support of field activities. Robert grew up in North Carolina and is a graduate of North Carolina State University with a bachelor's degree in soil science and wildlife biology. He also owns and manages longleaf woodland in Chesterfield County, South Carolina. Is a South Carolina certified prescribed fire manager. Our other talker is going to be Tom Ward. Tom has served as the forester at the NRCS East National Technology Support Center since October 2008. The East National Technology Support Center serves 23 East Region states providing technical assistance, technology transfer and training, and areas of emphasis include longleaf pine restoration, agroforestry, prescribed burning, tree planting, and more. So today's presentation, we're going to begin with the need for prescribed fire, and then we'll move into income opportunities through NRCS for conducting burns, the type of education and training that you might need to become a burner, insurance options that are available, liability protection, and then we're going to end with prescribed fire resources and take any questions that you all type into the chat box at the end. So I still haven't been able to get this to work just yet. There we go. Okay. So you should see a letter A with the chat box up at the top, and we'd like to know who's in our audience. So if you are a forester, go ahead and answer either A through C. A, if you do offer prescribed burning as a service to your clients, no if you don't, and C if you're thinking about it. If you're not a consultant at all or it's not applicable, go ahead and scroll down and choose D. So for those of you writing in the chat box, go ahead and see if you can find the letter with the letter A, and then scroll down to the letter that configures with your answer. I'll give everybody just a chance to pull those down. And based on the responses, some people did not answer that one, but it looks like we have a mix right now of people on our call, with most of you considering it as an option. So this is great that you're on this webinar. We hope this information will be helpful to you. Okay, our next question is going to be, if you are burning, are you interested in conducting additional burns and expanding your client base? So go ahead and choose A through D here. A if you are interested, B if you're not, C if possibly. For those of you who are typing it into the chat box, there should be an option to, at the top, you'll see under, there's a picture of a hand, and just next to that, there's the letter A in a square box, and that's where you can go ahead and choose your options there. So I will, okay. Getting a couple answers come in. Okay, we'll come back to that one. For some reason, we're having some issues with the box right now. Prescribed fire, just as a little bit of a background, I think probably most of you on this webinar are either forestry consultants or work with or interested in prescribed fire, so you're probably already aware of the benefits that the use of prescribed fire achieves. However, I just want to point out that some of the primary reasons to use prescribed fire as a land management tool are some of the items shown here. So for fuel reduction, prescribed fire is the most practical way to reduce dangerous accumulations. Without fuel reduction, fire hazard can be extremely high. Site preparation for seeding, planting, or natural regeneration. Aesthetic enhancement. The burning maintains open stands, produces changes in vegetation, increases the visibility of flowering plants. Also insect and disease control, for example, brown spot needle blight and longleaf seedlings. Improved wildlife habitat, for example, opening up ground level for travel and feeding, improving nutrient availability for plant growth and forage. Also to manage competing vegetation. Prescribed fire is by far the most economical way to do this when possible. Chemical and mechanical treatments can actually be 10 to 20 times more expensive. And finally, biological community restoration and maintenance. And so with these benefits, many landowners will actually pay a contractor to come and burn their land. And so as you're about to hear from Robert, agencies like the Nrcs provide payments for certain prescribed burning activities. And this isn't just a need in North Carolina, it's a region-wide issue for the entire South and possibly even the entire country. And several organizations are working together to collaborate to put more fire on the ground, but more is definitely needed. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the microphone off over to Robert Horton right now, who is with the
Jen,
Natural
thank you very
Resources
much.
Conservation Service in North Carolina.
Excuse my voice.
Robert?
I've picked up a little bit of a cold in the last couple of days. For you that do not know about Natural Resources Conservation Service, our agency does provide technical assistance to landowners, farmers, other individuals. Basically, we're providing that technical assistance to make science-based resource and land management decisions. And we do this locally, at a local level, generally out on the farm through a relationship, cooperative relationship, with landowners and other partners such as local forestry agencies, soil and water conservation districts, etc. And I think probably one of the big points of our type of technical assistance is that it's kind of one-on-one out on the farm. We also provide Farmville financial assistance. We used to call this cost share. We call it financial assistance now because it's really not a cost share like a percentage of a cost. It's kind of like a program financial payment. This is voluntary. Both the producer and the land have to be eligible for quite a number of these programs, and there has to be an identified resource concern or need that's been identified on the farm in order to be able to qualify for this financial assistance. The major Farm Bill programs for landowners from an NRCS standpoint, the big one is EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. That's where most of our cost share work gets done. On a secondary level, there is a conservation stewardship program, which is a kind of a payment for good work that's been, to recognize good work that's been done on a piece of land over a period of time. It's usually not to implement specific practices, but is kind of a reward or a stewardship type payment. We also work with the Farm Services Agency to help implement their program, such as the Conservation Reserve Program, where trees can be involved in retiring eroding cropland or on land that has certain environmental benefits. So all of our programs have to begin with a conservation plan. And what's involved with a plan, usually it's an on-site evaluation. We have to do environmental compliance. That's just required for U.S. government-related activities. We then kind of develop a set of alternatives that are presented to the landowner, and then the landowner can make the decision. What we record, probably a little differently than a lot of times it is done, we record actual decisions that have been made. We don't record what the we do record the alternatives for just for our use, but the plan itself has got to be an actual decision. What does the landowner want to do? So that's an important thing to be able to pull. So if we're using things like a Forest Service plan that's prepared by a state agency or by a consultant, we have to be able to look at that plan and say, what is it that is going to be done here? What is the decision that has been made? If there's a laundry list of things that could be done, then we're going to have to talk with who prepared the plan and talk with the landowner also to determine what do they want to do. Some things about our financial assistance program. Ranking is involved. Higher ranking applications or ones that provide more environmental benefits go to the top. So it's not first come, first serve. Participants must, this is done through a contract. So applicants must have then sign a contract in order to receive their financial assistance practices. And those practices have to be completed according to our specifications. Where there's contracts involved, that means that there are things that both of the parties to the contract have to provide. The landowner in their case has to provide timely execution of that contract, see that the work gets done, and from our side, NRCS side, we tell them, you know, how much money we'll be willing to pay them to do that kind of do that work. The financial assistance is based on regionally developed payment schedules, and in the case of North Carolina, we are in a region that includes Tennessee, West Virginia, Virginia. So South Carolina includes more of the southern states, so payment rates can be different from state to state depending on which region your payment schedules are developed in. Contracts are with individual landowners that meet the eligibility requirements. In other words, we can't have a contract with somebody that's basically in non-compliance with other federal programs or with Farmville programs related to crops or wetlands. And our contracts support the implementation of the practices that have been identified in that conservation plan. All equipped contracts on forest land must have a forest management plan. Not all of our NRCS employees are savvy foresters. We have some experience. We have experience that we've developed over time. But in general, there has to be a forest management plan on the tract in order for that application to move on towards a contract. This can be a plan by a state forestry agency, by a private consultant, or could be with a wildlife biologist if they have the appropriate credentials, and depending on what the land uses are, so or what the objectives are. Both herbaceous and in-stand forest and site prep burns are all eligible burn scenarios for cost share. I would say most of our burning that is done is in-stand burning to reduce litter, fuel, that sort of thing, or for an environmental to develop a fire-dependent plant community. Site prep burns are probably second, and then third, we do some burning of grasses, warm season grasses, and that sort of thing for wildlife. The term of our contracts are generally 2 to 5 years. The shorter, the better, kind of in our opinion, but we can go up to 5 years. But there must be at least one practice that's been started within the first year of the contract. All applications must be evaluated to assure that prescribed fire is needed and feasible. Usually we look for some kind of documentation from either a certified burner or someone that says that this tract, this piece of land is capable of being burned, and there's a good likelihood that it can be burned in a normal fire year. Once we had the fire included in a conservation plan and then in a contract, usually we pass that off to a certified burner to prepare the burn plan, and a lot of times they do the burn. Sometimes the local landowner can do the burn, at least in North Carolina, under our prescribed fire rules. That covers most of the environmental quality incentives program. The conservation stewardship program is, like I mentioned, it's a kind of a reward program that rewards participants that have been good stewards over the past period of time. Regular prescribed burning can factor into that base stewardship payment for forest land. In other words, if you do regular burning, that the person or the individual in that land may be more eligible and may rank higher as far as a CSP is concerned. I think that the participant has to answer a questionnaire, and how they answer that questionnaire depends on how they rank as far as CSP is concerned. Usually, once you're in CSP, you get other program benefits from like EQIP to do burning. So you need to be very careful in how you what you rank and how you answer some of those questions. There at least one quote enhancement is required for every CSP contract. Right now, there are not many enhancements that relate directly to burning, but that changes from year to year. There have been in the past, and there may be in the future. So enhancements, it's just conservation stewardship program is not really an incentive program for doing burning, but it's an incentive program for doing a job well. And it's probably suitable for certain people. The Conservation Reserve Program, of course, Farm Service Agency is the lead. The land has got to have a cropping history. Both the Nrcs and the state forestry agencies provide the technical assistance. Generally, it can be 10 or 15-year contracts. There's an annual payment that's kind of like a rental payment for taking the land out of crop production. And there's cost share to establish the cover, of which trees can be one of the one cover that's utilized. Prescribed fire can be used to meet management requirements in CRP, and both site prep and in-stand fire are allowed. However, once a piece of land is in CRP, no other programs can be utilized to do prescribed burning on an active CRP except CRP funds. So you need to be aware of that. Funding is available to do prescribed burning on CRP, but it has to be in the contract and done through the Farm Services Agency. NRCS also has opportunities for what we call technical service providers, or TSPs. We certify TSPs to do technical planning for us. Basically, a technical service provider for NRCS is kind of like just being an NRCS employee if you've been certified as a TSP. We will accept what you say, subject just to spot checking it every now and then to be sure that it meets what a TSP does, meets our standards and specifications. There are two types of assistance that can be done with a TSP. One is technical assistance, which is prepare burn plan specifications or certify that burns have been done correctly. The other one is actually planning funds, of which there is financial assistance for TSPs to prepare prescribed burn conservation activity plans. Basically, that's a plan that takes a look at the piece of land and says, yes, this is capable of being burned, what the resource concerns are that the fire will address, and how the fire needs to be done. There's payment for that. However, the individual has got the applicant or whoever gets it. It's between the TSP and the applicant. The applicant, I'm sorry, is who pays the TSP in this case. So there's no money directly from NRCS to technical service providers. It's done through the contract participant. Now, there are avenues to help see that TSPs get at least a portion of their money in the program payments from individuals who are involved and participate in programs can assign their payment to the technical service provider. So just another opportunity to utilize private services. So what's the state right now for NRCS? Well, the big story is that our financial assistance for especially longleaf pine and forestry in general have increased. At least in North Carolina for the last number of years, we've received close to $1 million for longleaf pine work, and our program managers have seen that a fairly good amount of general forestry money has been available for participants that want to do forestry practices. Prescribed burning is one of the practices that is contracted the most, and we ended up having more issues with it compared to a lot of other practices. I think we feel like, in general, we may be reaching capacity, but in other words, capacity to get the work done in a particular year. But there still seems to be a lot of interest out there. If you are a consultant or other land use professional that works with clients, be aware if you've got a client that has an EQIP contract or any other government contract, help keep them on schedule with you if you can. I guess the big word here is to communicate. For NRCS to communicate with the participant to communicate with whoever's doing the work for them. But ultimately, the participant is responsible to see that the work gets done. Our longleaf pine initiative, you can kind of see the light gray area there across the southeast, which was more or less the historical range of the longleaf pine. We can do work, at least we do in North Carolina. Most of the other southeast states also are part of this longleaf initiative also. Some of our core practices that we utilize a lot in the longleaf pine initiative are forest stand improvement practices, prescribed burning, some restoration and management of a declining habitat for trying to get the better understory going under the longleaf, and also tree and shrub establishment for planting longleaf pine. Jen, I'm going to pass it to you, and then we'll get questions towards the end.
Thanks, Robert. And as Robert mentioned, we'll go ahead and take any questions for him at the very end of the webinar. Tom's going to be coming up in just a second. But first, we wanted to find out from you all, for those of you who are considering expanding your services to include prescribed burning, what is the least amount of money that you would need to make per burn in order to make it worth your time, or in order for you to actually consider expanding your services? So go ahead and use the polling box to answer either A through E here, A being 1 through 1,500, B 1,500 to 3,000, C 3,000 to 5,500, or D greater than 5,500. or E if it's not applicable. Give you all just a second. Still have a couple answers coming in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and publish these results. So it looks like it's not applicable for some of you, but for the rest of you, it's kind of varied. So we thank you for those responses. And now I'm actually going to turn the floor to Tom Ward with the NRCS East National Technology Support Center. Tom?
Thank you, Jen. Liability is definitely a roadblock or a bottleneck for both consultants and landowners who are interested in prescribed burning. But there's good news. There are ways to reduce that risk of liability, including state laws that are often called prescribed burn law or right to burn law. There's certification courses that can reduce liability, and there's also some insurance options that we're going to take a look at here. So there's essentially two kinds of negligence that are covered in state laws and policies, just basic negligence and gross negligence, and that can be applied to either fire or smoke. The states that are listed here are the 9 states that are in the range of longleaf pine, and you'll see that there's quite a range of different possibilities state by state. And just to give a definition, simple negligence is essentially failure to take care that would be reasonably taken by a prudent person. Gross negligence, the difference between simple and gross negligence is intent. And with gross negligence, there's an intentional failure to exercise necessary care. So many states have a Prescribed Burning Act or some kind of Prescribed Fire Act. And these are typically promoted by a prescribed burn council or a coalition in the state. And they're intended to promote prescribed burning to make sure that it is maintained as an option, a right that someone can do. We have a list of states here, again from the Southeast, that do have Prescribed Fire Acts. But even if you don't happen to have one in your state, there are probably laws in place that would address prescribed burning. It might be under a Forestry Act or under Civil Code, but there are probably laws regulating prescribed burning. A good place to find out, besides just a internet search, you can probably contact your state forestry agency and find out what laws are in place regarding prescribed burning in your state. Just an example of the types of offenses that might be covered in a Prescribed Burn Act: recklessly allowing the fire to escape, conducting the burn without necessary precautions, starting a fire with a flammable material that's in the burning area, not establishing a proper fire line, or not notifying neighbors and other officials. We had a presenter from North Carolina note that most of the violations in North Carolina had to do with insufficient burn resources. That would be personnel, equipment, materials on the burn site, or insufficient monitoring of the burn site. All of these, of course, would be covered in prescribed burn training to make sure you did not do the things that would cause violation of these laws. So what can we do to assure that prescribed burns are conducted safely? Classroom education, field burn training, and experience are the ways to do that. There is some online training that's available. This particular course is from e-extension. You will find, if you go log on to the e-extension website, that if you click on prescribed burning as a search category, you'll get the courses that are available. There's kind of a general course, and there's also one that was tailored for the Southeast. If you do have a prescribed burn certification course in your state, every state will have a different set of requirements, but at a minimum there will be a prescribed burn training course and a certain amount of experience required to be a certified burner. And of course, once you have burn certification, you would be covered by any liability protection that is available from the state prescribed burn law. It's also worth noting that in order to participate in NRCS financial assistance programs, a burn plan must be prepared by a certified burner and conducted by a certified burner if there is certification in your state. Jen, you want to run the question?
Yes, thank you for that, Tom. So we'd like to ask the audience at this point, just looking at if anybody out there is currently a certified prescribed burner in your state. If you're not sure, then the answer is probably no. I'll go ahead and let you all respond to this question. We still have just a couple coming in, so I'll give you another second. For those of you who are typing into the chat box, if you wouldn't mind going back up to the top, you'll see a check mark. Right next to the right of the picture of the hand, there's a check mark in a box, and if you click on that, you can actually scroll down to yes or no and answer there. Okay, and it looks like most of you are. Some of you, or actually most of you are not at this point, and some of you are. So thank you, Tom, and we'll go ahead and continue on.
Okay. So what are some typical steps to becoming a certified burner? This is just an example, and it could be a little bit different as you go state by state, but there will be a training course. You'll need to prepare a burn plan. You need to obtain any burn permits that might be required in your state. Notification of residents and emergency response agencies is required. And then there's almost always smoke management guidelines or air quality regulations that need to be adhered to. And then often there's a requirement that you work with someone who's already a certified burner, almost like a mentoring process. And some states have these and some don't. So a typical prescribed burner school will be held every so often. I believe in North Carolina it's actually just one per year. It's held in a certain location. Often it has to do with a university or a community college. It varies in cost. You have to register in advance. So again, often your state forestry agency or a internet search will tell you the details about your prescribed burn certification course. Typical content include state laws that regulate prescribed burning, smoke management guidelines, fire behavior, ignition techniques, fire weather, fire safety, burn plan requirements, and probably a template for a burn plan, liability, and there should be a field exercise and actually hands-on. So what is a typical prescribed burn and who can write one? If you have a burn certification course, it will be just the certified prescribed burners that can write a plan. Technical service providers that work with NRCS, and in some cases, agency staff. NRCS does some prescribed burn training, state forestry agencies also. Additional resources, again, your state forestry agency. There are tools like the Prescribed Fire Smoke Management Pocket Guide that are available. Southern Fire Exchange. Every region of the country has a fire exchange, and that's a cooperative network of prescribed burn practitioners and researchers. And there's also a very good publication from the U.S. Forest Service that has a good example prescribed burn plan in it. So what are typically included in burn plan? Site information, burn objectives, existing conditions, stand description, desired future conditions, what you hope to accomplish with the burn, a plan map, pre-burn factors that include equipment needs, crew size, ignition procedure, a checklist for who to notify, smoke management plan, desired and predicted actual weather factors. This would be the burn prescription, essential, and the actual behavior that occurs during the burn, and then a post-burn evaluation. And then there's also going to be a place to indicate your certification or license and the approved signatures of the property owner and others that are involved with the burn. So who to notify? First would be, again, the state forestry agency. Often local or county law enforcement and emergency responders. So the law enforcement, the fire department, fire suppression. And often there's a single phone number that will bring those all together and coordinate the dispatch in a local area. And then nearby residents and local or county government. Smoke management is just as important as fire management. Often the risk from smoke is equal to or greater than the risk from the fire itself. So it's not optional. It's certainly a key to a successful burn. There will probably be smoke management, air quality kinds of regulations, and you need to know what they are for your state or locality. The amount of smoke that's generated from the fire is quite variable depending on the fuel, the weather, topography, firing technique, size of the burn, and duration. And there are ways, of course, to minimize the smoke that comes off of a burn. And then there's a lot of difference from state to state in smoke management laws and regulations. There's a very good pocket guide that's available on smoke management, and there's a link there for it. So in many cases, you don't have to be certified in order to conduct a burn. However, you won't be covered by your state's Prescribe Burn Act liability reduction if you're not certified. And again, if you wish to participate in Nrcs financial assistance, you need to be certified if that's available in your state. You have another question?
Yes, another question for the audience. And so we're wondering, for those of you who do burn, how many acres on average do you burn each year? And if you're not a forestry consultant, go ahead and push not applicable for this one. But if you are a consultant or a landowner, answer either B through E now, please. And again, you can just use the pull-down box, the letter A with the box surrounding it. We still have a couple answers coming in now. I will go ahead and publish these. So most of you are not applicable. For the rest of you, it's pretty varied. Thank you all. Back to you, Tom.
Okay, the cost for prescribed burning varies a lot. Well, actually, it doesn't vary a lot. It depends on the type of burn that you're doing, the ignition type, and the purpose of the burning. This is a table that shows some of the costs from the Southeast, and you can see that it varies from about $50+ an acre down to about $21 an acre. Nrcs, through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, does provide financial assistance for prescribed burning, and again, depending on the actual type of burn that you're doing, it varies from about $21 to about $60 per acre. And then insurance, and I think the significant thing here is that there are several choices, and I'm not going to go through these, but there are seven different possibilities that are listed here. So there are insurance options available for prescribed burning. And the costs do vary, and it is worthwhile to do some research, and there are discounts often for different memberships. Association of Consulting Foresters, Society of American Foresters, for example. National Wild Turkey Federation members have discounts, Longleaf Alliance, and it may depend on the size of burn that you're interested in conducting. There's a lot of additional resources that are available, and there will be some handouts associated with this webinar, but you can see the list here of different additional sources of information. Prescribed fire councils are very important, and most states have them. That's right about in the middle of the list here. Search on the internet might let you know where or how to reach your prescribed fire council for your state. And it is often a kind of clearinghouse, a one-stop shop for information on prescribed burning. They also are your probably best advocate for the practice. They often author the prescribed burn laws that are in place in your state and assure that that continues to be an option. And you'll see a link to a PDF at the bottom of the page that lists or includes all of the sources that you see here. So again, the Prescribe Fire Council for your state is a very important organization to know about. It's often made at public agencies, NGOs like Nature Conservancy and others that do prescribed fire, university research that does prescribed burn research, and private sector including consultants who do prescribed burning. Often meet several times a year. Often they have an annual meeting with training and continuing education, and they often have field trips and opportunities to get up close and see what prescribed burning looks like and what the post-burn response might be to a prescribed burn. If you are not sure about whether you have a prescribed fire council, there is a Southern Fire Exchange, or a fire exchange probably, that you can search on the internet and get that information. So in conclusion, prescribed burning is increasingly utilized, but we need a lot more of it. There's probably a fire-dependent plant community in every part of the country, and often several, and often they are in need of more prescribed burning. There is funding available to do prescribed burning, and we are certainly encouraging more technical service providers and forestry consultants to add prescribed burning to the services that they offer. So I think with that, I'll turn it back to Jen.
Thanks, Robert, and thanks, Tom. We really appreciate your time today, and we did have some questions come into the chat box, and we have plenty of time to answer those. So I'm just going to go back from the beginning and try to go through them from the order that they came. So one of the questions is, maybe Robert, this might be a good one for you. What is the minimum acreage requirement for financial assistance?
Sorry, I didn't hit the talk button. To be honest with you, I don't know how far down, how low we go. That's a programs question. I think there's something related to, I know we have done contracts in the range of $500 total contract, and maybe less. I think that it would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis if it was less than $500, and it would be up to the programs manager to make that decision.
And just taking a guess then at the payment rate that we have, that could be 5 to 10 acres, I think, at a minimum.
Yeah, it depends on the number of fire breaks and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay, that would maybe.
Somebody says 10 acres in Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question, and I may need her to clarify this, but the question is, what is the capacity in South? I think the question might be, is there capacity problems just in South Carolina or across the entire Southeast? And Tammy, let me know if I've misrepresented that.
I would say there's probably capacity limitations everywhere that I've worked, and that includes the Midwest, the upper Midwest, and the Southeast. There's just a greater need for prescribed burning than there are people out there, consultants especially, who offer that as a service. What would you say, Robert?
I would say the same.
Okay.
I think it's pretty much nationwide.
And I think we did answer her question. That she said, Robert, that you had mentioned, quote unquote, we've reached capacity.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think we are contracting burning at a rate that it seems like we're continually have more acres, and we end up under contract for burning, and that number is kind of slowly going up, which is indicating to me that some people are not getting that burning done in a timely manner, which seems to indicate that there could be issues getting it done sometimes. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, great. The next question is, how does the Prescribe Burn Act affect workers' comp? And I'm not sure if you guys will have an answer to that one or not. If not, maybe we can try to track that. answer
It might
now.
take a lawyer to answer that one.
I really don't know.
And I'm sure that might vary by state also. So if you want to provide your email in the chat box, we can try to get back to you on that. Otherwise, I'd say probably maybe contact your forestry department in whatever state you're located in, and they could probably help answer that question for you. Okay, the next question is, why is there no correspondence copied to contracted consultants if they're in the position to help the landowners? We can't help if we're unaware of the time-sensitive correspondence between landowner and NRCS.
I'll take a stab at that one real quick. I think everybody has got to understand, including the landowner, with the last farm bill that was passed, there was specific wording that was put in there to protect personally identifiable information, and NRCS cannot give any information to a consultant unless the landowner has signed a release that allows that. I know that may seem a little unusual because we're all interested in getting the work done, but there are some legal aspects with sharing information that we have. So if the landowner has signed a release that allows us to make contact, I think that we can. I think the best thing is, from an NRCS standpoint, I try to talk to our people to be sure they stay on top of the participant, finding out whether they've got somebody lined up and being sure that they stay on who they've gotten lined up to get the work done.
I know you stressed communication, Robert, between technical service providers.
Between everybody. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question was kind of a question that I think I answered, but somebody was asking about the difference between National Wildland Coordinating Group and versus Certified Burner, and I just wanted to clarify that those are not the same. So the national version is just that, it's through national. The Certified Prescribed Burner is through each individual state. It's not nationally recognized at this point, so you'll have to go through the training and whatever, if your state even has one. Some states don't have one, but I just wanted to make that clarification. Okay, so the next question is, how does the Prescribe, actually, let me go up. Does the insurance agency offer workman's comp as well? And I can take a stab at this one unless you guys have an answer.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I talked to several of the insurance agencies that had been posted earlier, and let's see, pull that slide up. So there's about 7 insurance agencies in the Southeast that currently have prescribed burning insurance, and most of them actually did include an option to cover workman's comp. So I would just suggest, you know, like Tom said, doing your homework and calling around and see where you can get the best rate. And if workman's comp is something that you're looking for, just make sure you choose an agency that provides that. But some of them definitely do. Okay. The next question that we had, it looks like actually there's just some chat back and forth, and then somebody had posted a actual opportunity for maybe some contracting work. Oh, okay, and then another question about being state certified. So yes, certified is state specific. So I would just recommend either, if you're not sure if your state has one, contact your state forestry agency. They'll be able to tell you. Next question is, has there been any consideration from monetary, as in insurance assistance or other assistance, incentives to increase the number of contract burners or prescribed burners in general in North Carolina?
I presume some of the cost that's rolled into our rates per acre has to do with liability, but I don't know. That's my assumption.
Yeah, I think we are limited in how that our money can be used, and I would think probably that monetary and assistance for insurance, we probably couldn't we couldn't utilize our money, or at least our cost share payment rate money that way. But it should be considered in the scenario cost for prescribed burning.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, do the county NRCS agents maintain a list of contractors to provide landowners in need of prescribed fire services?
We should. And in the case of technical service providers that are certified, there's a national website that you can go to there for TSPs and actually search for a TSP that's certified in a particular area. But I know when I used to work in the field, I kept all kinds of lists of contractors that did work in the county. Whether it's up to date and would include everybody's name that does work, I don't know. That would be up to the local office to ride herd over that.
Another place you could look would be your state prescribed fire council. They'll probably list consultants, and then also state forestry agency will probably have a list of consulting foresters with a list of the services that they provide. And your wildlife agency may also have one for wildlife consultants.
Yes, I would agree with both of those. I know South Carolina Prescribed Fire Council maintains a list of prescribed burners, and then in North Carolina, they actually called all of the forestry contractors and have a list of contractors who are specifically interested in looking for more services for prescribed burning, and there's a website with a link that has the information for all of the contractors. So it does vary by state for sure. Okay, I think we have time for just a couple more questions here before we wrap up. There is a question about national burn certification. And I can take a stab at that, but the question, I guess, was, is there a national burn certification? And so the only national burn certification, I guess, if you could call it, is through the NWC, the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, and that's not the same as a state-certified burner, as I mentioned. So the certification that it gives you is going to be slightly different, and probably not something that you're going to need if you are a consultant burner. There's a question on
training.
Is there anywhere to get current information on whether financial assistance is available in your area and any sign-up deadlines?
I will say this, that in financial assistance should be available anywhere in North Carolina. The sign-up is continuous, so and deadlines are going to change from year to year, because that's one thing that's somewhat bad about this federal money. We're working under continuing resolution right now. We don't know for sure when we're going to get the money that we're supposed to get. On a good year, when we get everything in a timely manner, it can be somewhat specific with deadlines. But on years like this, and what seems to be more like the norm, we don't seem to get our national and the national allocations at the state in as timely a manner, and so therefore we're always kind of redoing our timelines depending on when we get the money in and when we think we can get the work done. But the application period is continuous. A person that wants to participate can sign up at any time, and if there is a resource concern and a need for fire, it should be available in every county in North Carolina through EQIP. How it will rank, I cannot tell you.
And your county USDA USDA Service Center where NRCS and FSA offices are located is always your best choice, or best source of information on programs.
Okay, great. It's just about time to wrap up. For those of you, if you can stay on, I just wanted to answer one more question. And there were two questions kind of in regards to the same thing about do states honor certification from other states? And is there should be, the comment was there should be a national certification. And I was just going to make a note that some states actually do have reciprocity with other states. It does, again, vary from state to state, so you'd have to check with your own specific state to see what other states they're reciprocal with. Usually it's only the adjacent states or some nearby states, but that's something that they usually do on a case-by-case basis, and so you would have to talk to your forestry agency about that. And then there was a comment that depending upon state rules, the NWCG burn boss qualifications may also be accepted as the equivalent of the state certified burner qualifications. So just a clarification there. And that was the end of our questions. If anybody has any further questions, you have all of our contact information on the last slide here. Feel free to email any of us with questions that you have. I'm going to go ahead and into the chat box right now. I'm typing, I just included a link. And so this link, I'll also push you out to, it will redirect the webinar to this link right now. And it'll connect you to the survey and also to the quiz. If you need to take your CFEs, you're going to have to take the survey and also pass the short quiz and then complete the form afterwards. So I want to thank everybody for joining today, and I'll go ahead and send you to this link. Thank you very much.
Did you mention, Jen, about handouts, or does everyone know about them?
Yes, the handouts are going to be actually already on. If you go to the Forestry webinar portal, there is a copy of today's presentation as well as some PDF handouts that are already uploaded to the webinar portal. So they should be available at this time already. And then this webinar is going to be archived and will be available in about a week. Thank you, everybody.